Matthew 5, verses 13 to 16. You are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world, a city set on a hill and cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven.
Those words of Jesus from the Sermon on the Mount follow statements of blessedness, true blessedness. He pronounces upon those who don't meet the world's standards or follow the world's values, but those who find true favor with God, those who are poor in spirit, those who are mournful over their failings, over their sins, those who would be gentle with those around them as God is so gentle with us, those who would hunger and thirst for righteousness, those that would be merciful just as God has been merciful to us, and upon the pure in heart and the peacemakers and those who had suffered for their faith in God, those who had been insulted, those who had been persecuted, just as the prophets of long ago had been persecuted. So he pronounces them Makarios, he pronounces them blessed or blessed, those who are recipients of overflowing divine favor. And upon those same people, and to those same people, to us, he says, you are these incredible difference makers in this world. That's God's plan for you, to be like salt, to be like light. He says, you are the salt of the earth. If the salt has lost its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. You're the light of the world. A city set on a hill can't be hidden. Light a lamp and put it under a basket at the lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. So Jesus, in terms of these two elements that are undeniable difference makers wherever their presence is found. The presence of both of these is palpable. Salt, when it's present, you know it. Salt, when it's not present, you know it. Light. Is this one cutting in and out, or is it just me? Okay. We'll go to this one. Ryan? There you go. Good catch, Ryan. He was on board. He was on deck, totally caught him off guard with the scripture reading this morning, and thanks for being alert at that point as well. I'll just work off of this mic. Light's presence is undeniable. Light's absence is undeniable. And so we are committed to being that salt, being that light in this world. How we do that, though, can sometimes be a challenge. God leaves it to our seeking of His wisdom, the discernment that He gives us as to best how to live this out. This is a truth that we want to give incarnation to, that we want to put in flesh and bones and blood, individually as disciples of Jesus Christ, but also collectively as a body of Christ. So over the last couple of years, as we have sought to find ways to articulate how we might be able to be salt and light in this community, we did that in the form of the articulation of values and a purpose and vision and a mission. And just to remind you briefly before we get into the heart of the message this morning, those values are living faith, transformational discipleship, compassionate service, and servant stewardship, all of which feeds this purpose of sharing God's love from the heart of Broken Arrow, which gives rise to our vision that we'll be an engaged and compassionate body of believers, a spiritual anchor for our community, and a place for disciples of Jesus to worship, serve, and grow, which all flows into our mission to to share the message of Jesus through the witness of our words, our examples, our acts of compassionate service in our community and around the world. Probably 4 years ago, I shared with you a question that I saw posted on Facebook that just really grabbed my attention. I couldn't get my mind off of it. And the question was, if your church were to disappear overnight, how long would it take your community to notice? At a more basic level, if your church were to disappear overnight, would your community notice? And if they ever noticed, how long would it take them to do that? I'm grateful that in numerous ways, the presence of this body of believers in this community would be missed with rather great immediacy. I think that's the case through kids care and the children and the families that are blessed through that outreach and ministry, through our clothing room, through our food pantry, and I've become convinced over the last 9 years because of New Heights Summer Camp. I'm completely convinced that New Heights embodies all of those elements, our values, our purpose, our vision, and our mission in a very beautiful and a very, very valuable way. And New Heights is a microcosm of what we are seeking to be as a church family. New Heights 2017 just wrapped up last Friday, completing 8 weeks of summer camp. And for those of you who may be visiting today or just new from the community and may not be familiar with New Heights, this started in the summer of 2009, so this was our 9th summer. It started as an effort to address 2 needs: summer nutrition for children from lower income families who were dependent during the school year on free or reduced cost meals at school. Those summer months can be long and be difficult. And also to address the need of academic enrichment, to decrease learning loss, to increase retention during those summer months. All students experience learning loss during the long summer break. It's inevitable. Children from lower income families have less access to computer resources at home, academic camps. And so through what started as 50 Days of Food and Fun and then morphed into New Heights Summer Camp, we sought to address both of those: the nutritional needs through the USDA's Summer Food Service Program and the educational needs through this academic enrichment camp. So for 40 days, 5 days a week for 8 weeks, actually it was 39 days because we took off the 4th of July, those 2 needs were met with 2 hot meals a day, daily instruction in Bible and reading and math and science, technology, engineering and math, a computer lab, a library, physical education, and once again successfully narrowed that summer nutrition gap for children in our community and their families, and also greatly reducing learning loss. And I just wanted to share with you this morning a glimpse of the impact of New Heights this summer as an incarnation of our values and our purpose and our vision and our mission, and a very tangible means by which we are being salt and light in this community. There were 215 children that were registered in the camp this summer, and those 215 children came from 145 unique, distinct families. The average attendance of kids each day was 140. It's like that during the school year. Not all students are there every day. It's certainly not that way at New Heights every day because of other things that are going on, other camps, church camps that they may be attending, family vacations that they may be attending, but we averaged about 140 kids a day. This summer we served 14,032 meals to those children who came. 14,032, and so the question arises in your mind, I wonder how many meals we have served since the summer of 2009. I'm so glad you asked. That number is 104,539 cumulatively over the last 9 years. 104,539. Sometime back in mid-July, we crossed that 100,000 meal mark. And some of those were provided for people who just came in because Due to the fact that we're an open site for the summer food service program, any child under 18 can come in and get a free hot breakfast and lunch. And there were 341, an average of about 13 of those meals served every day. So a lot of praise, a lot of commendation goes to our kitchen staff, both the full-time staff and the volunteers who worked in the preparation of the food, the serving of the food, the cleanup, the washing of the dishes. All of that happened twice a day for 39 days. There was a total of 3,389 volunteer hours. Yes, we had a lot of full-time staff, but there was an average of over 400 volunteer hours provided a week from people like you. One of the most encouraging things about New Heights this year, as we've begun to see in the last few years, is a returning to the program of those who have gone through the program and have aged out, being middle school or older. And these New Heights alums are coming back as volunteers to give back to others what they have received, and also being added on as New Heights staff. There were 2 full-time staff members this year who were New Heights alums. One of those was Eric McKinney. And a lot of you would recognize Eric if you saw him. He's a wonderful young man. If you've been around New Heights for a few years, you would recognize him immediately. Probably recognize his mom as well. And back 3 months or so ago, I went to a Rotary Club lunch here in Broken Arrow to make a presentation about New Heights. The Rotary Club had been generous to New Heights before. They would prove to be generous to New Heights again this year with a grant of $5,000. But this was before the acknowledgement of the grant, and just to provide information again. And on the day that I went to make the presentation, the Rotary Club was also honoring 5 Broken Arrow Students of the Year, seniors who were about to graduate from Broken Arrow High School. One of those 5 was Eric McKinney. And it was so exciting to see this young man who for several years was a New Heights camper, now and then became a New Heights volunteer, and now is a New Heights staff member, being honored as one of BA's Students of the Year by the local Rotary Club. I asked his permission to acknowledge that and point that out during the presentation, and he is such a tremendous young man. There were 9 New Heights alums who were back as volunteer counselors and kitchen help this summer. 11 individuals that were former volunteers that were full-time staff members this year. They had gotten connected with New Heights by doing what a lot of you do, volunteering your time, your energy, your effort. And 11 of those became full-time staff members this year. And it's wonderful to see how that happens. Cody Knight is a great example of that. He worked hard as a volunteer all summer, washing dishes every day over in the OC kitchen. And he's got a full-time job lined up for next summer now, washing dishes over at New Heights. But it's a little different when you're getting paid, you know. He would have done it anyway, I'm sure. But it's great to see those volunteers transition into full-time staff members. There were 4 AmeriCorps Vista workers, including Cale Knight and Alyssa Parker, that are known to us here. The great thing about that is they spend all summer working full-time at New Heights, and their paycheck comes from the U.S. government instead of from the New Heights account. There is an ever-growing number of New Heights kids who are kids care graduates who transition from one incredible outreach and ministry to another incredible outreach and ministry, and that keeps continuity of contact with those children and with their families as they begin to get older. Jessica Galswick just finished up her 3rd year as our kitchen supervisor and manager, and she is all set to come back for her 4th year next year. 2 STEM teachers are already committed. A reading teacher is already committed. Lilia Basajo is already committed as the Bible teacher for the younger children's Bible classes. And in fact, Colleen told me on Friday there's only 1 teacher position that isn't filled for next summer already, just because of those who have taught and don't want to miss next year. They want to make sure that they are a part of this experience again next year. So I know those are a lot of numbers, a lot of statistics, but it's not about the stats. It's not really the stats at all. It's the story that matters. And that's a truth, and that's a principle that applies to a whole lot of different circumstances and experiences in life. The stats maybe give you something to hold on to, but the stories are far more important. So this past week, knowing that we were about to wrap up, I had the opportunity to sit down with several of the full-time staff members and/or administrators and just debrief on the summer and pick their brains and get insights and comments from them about the experience of the summer. Colleen described this as a peaceful summer. A peaceful summer. And peace is a blessing. We've learned a lot over the last 9 years, and I think that has contributed to the kind of experience that we had this summer. I tried to walk over to the OC at least a time or two every day, and every time I was there was just a sense of calm. There were smiles, there was active engagement on the part of the children, there was cooperation and contentment, and the real sense of a community of learning in which everyone was committed. All were very, very much bought in. This concept of being busted, not for doing something bad, but for doing something good. When somebody catches you doing something good, you get written up for it. You get busted, you get your picture taken, and it gets posted on the wall, and the busted wall was bursting with busted notifications. And this just kept feeding itself all summer. On Friday, when you would expect the kids just to be worn out along with all the teachers and everybody just waiting for that pickup time to come and not really having any energy left to do anything, the kids were helping the teachers, the kids were helping the counselors take all the things down from the walls, to put chairs back, to put tables back, to get things back in the condition that they are this morning. So I really think that New Heights reached new heights this year, just in a lot of different respects. One part of that Colleen shared, that Shelley Persinger, the director, also shared, was the new approach to addressing issues of conduct and behavior. In the past, they would have a bracelet, a blank bracelet, at the beginning of the day, and there was a possibility you would accrue X's during the day, and 3 X's was a bad thing. But as more thought was given to this, it seemed to be a negative approach, looking for those negative things and then penalizing the kids for them. They started this year with a new wristband that had 5 stars. And the goal of every child was to keep that 5-star status going. It accentuated the positive. They were repeatedly told that they were created in God's image, that God was in them, that they had been created for excellence. And there was so much mentoring and character training going on. Not just offering correction, but offering direction to these children. One-on-one attention and intervention, helping equip these children to make good choices, to take ownership of their behavior, to use their words, and to make sure those words were kind words and respectful words and encouraging words. And when I tell you how many maintained their 5-star status all summer, not getting a single X, all summer long, 39 days, or having one of those stars marked out, you might think erroneously that meeting those standards was a cakewalk. It wasn't. There were some children who had to be dismissed from New Heights because of disciplinary issues and a failure to follow the rules, but that was a rarity, percentage-wise a rarity. But it was done. And it was further communication and affirmation that this was taken with great seriousness, that a tough love was being shown about what is and what isn't acceptable behavior, and instruction about boundaries and structure, to which the kids responded extremely well, to the extent that 174 out of the 215 children didn't get a single X all summer. They maintained their 5-star status all summer, 174 out of 215. And it's not that there weren't any rules. There were, and some kids learned that, and that they learned that those rules and the breaking of them had consequences. To the extent, I think one of the awards, as I was talking to Colleen Friday over in the OC, after the ceremony where all the awards were given out to those who had maintained the 5-star status, one of the counselors came up and said, "We are so sorry, we inadvertently gave one of the acknowledgments and awards to a child that didn't get it. What should we do?" And the answer was, take it back. That's how much it meant. It wasn't a gimme. It wasn't a freebie. And when it wasn't earned, it wasn't given. Shelley Persinger was the director this year. Shelley came to us through a contact with Kenya Hill. Kenya was a former employee. She did a graduate school internship with New Heights last summer. Kenya attends the same church that Shelley is a part of, and she knew of Shelley's long history of working with kids and teaching kids and being a swim coach for kids. Shelley has an interesting backstory. She grew up in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Her father was an economic development officer there. He was a political advisor to John F. Kennedy back in the day. And so she grew up in the Virgin Islands, became a swimmer, swam for the University of South Carolina, and then was an Olympic swimmer, last competing in Barcelona. After that, she studied for ministry. She got married. She had 4 kids. She worked with and coached children at the Boys and Girls Clubs. Served as a supervisor for a local Christian school. And when Kenya knew of all of that and knew of our needs at New Heights, she brought those two together, and we're very, very grateful for that. The first thing Shelley said, looking back over the summer, was that Colleen is simply amazing and doesn't get nearly enough recognition for all that she does. And I would have to agree with that. And Colleen gets mad anytime anybody says something like that. But it's true. And Shelley was very perceptive in seeing that early on. Contributing to Colleen's increased ability to be on site and over at the OC this year was the fact that Kim Keel was now in the office 5 days a week, beginning the week before New Heights and continuing through next week. And Kim did a tremendous job, and that freed Colleen of any anxiety from being over there instead of being over here at times. Shelley was also highly complimentary, as was Colleen, about Chris Knight's work as the assistant director this year. And Chris completely took the helm for a week and a half while Shelley was out of the country on a mission trip, and that was a blessing as well. Just summing up what Shelley said, Shelley knew nothing of the Broken Arrow Church of Christ until she came to New Heights and served as the director this year. And she said, from the first day, I was completely, absolutely impressed with this church. And we are hoping that she will serve again next summer. Our own Mignon Lee served again as the gatekeeper. I did not go to the OC all summer when Mignon was not sitting at that desk. I don't know if she ever got up for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, for 8 weeks. She was the gatekeeper. She's also the disciplinary supervisor. And so she saw everybody. She saw everything all summer. And so I was really interested about Mignon's observations. They included the following, and these are all quotes from her. On many occasions, children became upset about being picked up early. Parents would comment that they have so much fun that the children don't want to leave. I've watched as staff members hugged each camper when they came in. Campers begin their days knowing that they are loved and cared for. I've watched staff pray with and pray for students that are struggling. Many reassurances were given to our children that they are wonderfully made by a loving God, and I personally heard this vocalized multiple times by the counselors and the teachers. I had a parent vocalize thanks for loving a child that previous groups had more or less given up on. Children who struggle with reading were provided tutoring assistance throughout the week thanks to a precious volunteer. School teachers have commented to me how New Heights has helped to keep minds actively engaged during the summer. And then she said, this is what I want most for our congregation to hear. They need to know that our congregation is involved in an amazing outreach. Children and their families are having physical and spiritual needs met through this program. This very much follows the pattern that Christ left for us to follow. And then she follows with, obviously this doesn't happen without a lot, all caps, of help. Thank you to those who have given their time and effort to make it happen. And so from Chris, who this was her first year with New Heights, both as part of being a part of the experience and then serving as an administrator. She said, "My observations and reflections will be totally different because this is my first year and I have nothing to compare it to from years past. I did observe a lot of growth in knowing our own members, as she does, knowing our own teens and young adults. She said, I did observe a lot of growth within our own teens and young adults as they volunteered and worked with the younger children. I saw our teens and young adults' relationships get stronger with each other and closer with each other in a way that wouldn't have happened just on Sunday morning. We also heard heartbreaking stories from the campers about how their home life was. I saw counselors sharing love and support with these campers. I saw life skills being taught, table manners, what it means to be respectful, how God wants you to treat others, not how the world says you should treat others. I know of clothes being handed out because washers and dryers were broken at home or money just wasn't there to buy clothes. I saw families coming in to drop off their children and then learning about our clothing room and food pantry and being thrilled that there was something in the area that could help them. I saw children not wanting to leave at the end of the day because they were having so much fun, and I saw children crying on the last day because they didn't want it to end. Some seeds were planted this year, and other seeds were further cultivated that had been planted many years ago. There probably weren't many academic enrichment camps around the Tulsa area or in Oklahoma or anywhere in the United States that featured 2 Ukrainian Bible teachers. But we had them here with Masha Keel and Lilia Basajo. And both were a bit concerned at the beginning of the summer that their accents might be an impediment to the attention and comprehension of the children. Nothing could have been further from the reality of the situation. I sat in on the class the other day with Lilia teaching it, and it was just incredible. The children were transfixed as she reviewed with them the days of creation and the 10 Commandments, and then walked them through the story of Jesus' baptism in the Jordan River by John the Baptizer. Masha had agreed to take the full-time position before summer started to teach all of the younger children's Bible classes 5 days a week for 8 weeks. And on the first day, she was surprised when Lilia walked in. She didn't know that Lily was going to show up, but she did, and told her that she would be her volunteer assistant for the duration of the summer. And thus was born the Ukrainian power teaching duo. They taught 9 Bible classes a day, 30 minutes each. That's 4.5 hours a day of Bible instruction. Again, 39 days instead of 40 because of July the 4th. But they taught 351 Bible classes this summer, 175 hours of instruction in the Word of God. So if you were a New Heights camper and you were there every day, you got 20 hours of Bible this summer. If you were in middle school, because the classes were 45 minutes instead of 30 minutes, you got 29 hours of Bible. And I started thinking, if you only came to Sunday morning Bible class, how long would it take you to get 39 hours of 29 hours of Bible instruction? It would take you 39 Sundays to have that much exposure to the Word of God. This year started on Sunday, January the 1st. You would have to come to Bible class on Sunday morning from January the 1st to September the 24th, the 39th Sunday of the year, to have had that much exposure to the Word of God in a Bible class. And I know you're already thinking those Sundays, yes, boys and girls, it's just 140 days to Christmas. If you were wondering how many Sundays, we are into the year and what's left. One comment that both of them made, though, was that many of these children at New Heights don't come from families that attend church services. And so they don't know many of the stories that our own children here know, but that translates into something that you might not guess. What that translated into was rapt attention because it was new, because they hadn't heard that story before. They didn't know the end of the story, and they had serious questions, deep questions, especially for elementary age children. One of the things they talked about a lot was God's nature, God's love, God's forgiveness, God's compassion, and how God knows everything. I'm pretty sure they didn't drop the term omniscience on them, but they talked at length about what the concept means of God's knowledge and His foreknowledge. And it translated into just amazing stories. And I had Lilia's permission to share this story with you. She had been teaching these classes, and some of her own children were in those classes. And not too many days ago, she was making cupcakes at home. And their son David was helping her. He was holding the cupcake while she applied icing to the cupcakes. And David, who is 7, began rehearsing with her and repeating some of the things they had been talking about in Bible class. And he said, "Mom, did you know that God knows everything?" And she admitted, she said, I was done teaching Bible class. I was baking at this point, and I was focused on getting the icing on the cupcakes. And she said, yeah, God knows everything. And he said, he knew 7 years ago when you were pregnant with me that you would be making cupcakes today and that you would need somebody to help you make the cupcakes. God knew that, and he was right. He was absolutely right. God knew that. Another pattern that I saw through New Heights, and guys, I love you and appreciate you so much, but what I kept seeing were these women serving in such wonderful ways. God's women, gifted women, committed women, women of faith, women of ministry to others. And again, in that sense, I think New Heights is a microcosm of the life of the Broken Arrow Church as a whole, where so many ministries, many of our most impactful ministries exist and continue to function so effectively because of the servant leadership of the women within this congregation. And this week is just going to be more evidence of that with Vacation Bible School. So again, guys, thank you for what you're doing, but ladies, thank you for everything that you're doing to make Vacation Bible School this week a success. Just wrapping up some evidence that we are indeed achieving that dream of being a spiritual anchor for our community and being recognized as a spiritual anchor in our community. There were representatives from Senator Inhofe's staff that visited New Heights this summer to see firsthand what was going on. There were 4 board members from the Broken Arrow Community Foundation, which provided a $4,900 grant to us this year. Those board members included Dr. Clarence Oliver, former superintendent of education here in Broken Arrow, and also our own Gina Hendon. We had a total of $11,900 in grants this year from Williams and Tulsa Post and the Rotary Club and the BA Community Foundation. And then last Sunday night, bear with me if you were here, I'll just summarize briefly, but for those of you who weren't here last Sunday night, we recently New Heights became the beneficiary, along with the Broken Arrow Church, of the gift of property to be used for the furthering of what we're doing at New Heights. Back in late June, I got a call from a guy I had never met. His name was Bob Willinger. He's a realtor with Coldwell Banker. He's also a member of the local Rotary Club. He had been there when I'd made presentations in the past, but his first exposure to New Heights came 4 or 5 years ago as he came here to talk to the kids with a Rotary-sponsored water safety program called Josh the Otter. And so when he spent a part of the day here talking about Josh the Otter and how to be careful around water, he saw what was going on, and it stuck in his mind. As a realtor, he also works with Wells Fargo Bank in helping dispose of foreclosed properties. Wells Fargo has a program, the acronym for which is CUSP, Community and Urban Stabilization Program. And they will take properties that are dilapidated or in need of a lot of care or have been foreclosed on, and they will donate those to nonprofits for the purpose of refurbishing them, making improvements, and using them in some way to benefit the community. This particular property over at 216 East Greeley, the house was in such bad repair that it was slated for demolition. So Wells Fargo contacted Bob to find out if this property might be used in the CUSP program, and if so, who should be the recipient of the property. And Bob Willinger, who's not a member here, just a member of the Rotary Club, Josh the Otter, he tells Wells Fargo, you need to donate that property to the Broken Arrow Church of Christ so that they can use it for outreach through New Heights and continue to bless this community. So long story short, a week ago Friday, we closed on the property. It was listed last Friday, drove by there late yesterday, and there's a sign out front now. And when that property sells, the proceeds will go to New Heights. And here's a quote from Bob on that first conversation that we had back in late June. He said, "I don't know how much feedback or thanks you guys get for what you're doing for children in our community through New Heights, but you need to know that people in Broken Arrow see it and greatly appreciate it and support it. And that's why we want you to have this property." So with all of that in mind, when you read about living faith and transformational discipleship and compassionate service and servant stewardship, including the stewardship of our facilities and how they are used, when we think about sharing God's love from the heart of Broken Arrow and being an engaged and compassionate body of believers, a spiritual anchor for our community, a place for disciples of Jesus to worship, serve, and grow, and a desire to share the message of Jesus through the witness of our words, our examples, and our compassionate acts of compassionate service in our community around the world, I hope you see that there are multiple ways that we're finding to do that, including New Heights, which helps us be the salt and the light that Jesus calls us to be. So again, if you are a part in any way through full-time staff, a volunteer, those of you who so generously donate when we have fundraisers, and thank you for your prayers. They make a difference. As we close, we remind you of how we become light in this world. It's through giving our lives to the light of the world, Jesus Christ. And through our obedience to Him, our acceptance of His grace, His light begins to shine through us. And if you're ready to leave this world of darkness and have the light of Christ shine in your life, if you're ready to be baptized, if you want to recommit yourself to a walk of faithful discipleship, whatever your needs may be, our shepherds will be here at the front to receive you as we stand together and leads us in this song.